Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and I'm still under the weather, but the show must go on, at least while I have the strength. And today, we are talking about the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, because their new ID system apparently is a privacy nightmare, and there have been a lot of ups and downs on this. I've actually talked about this one. That service is ID.me, but we have some new information coming from Brian Krebs of Krebs on Security. He's everybody's favorite cybersecurity writer, hopefully next to me, although I know he's way more popular. And I'm going to paraphrase him heavily here, because one, I'm under the weather, and two, I think he's an excellent writer. So let's talk about what Mr. Krebs had to say. Here's what's going on. Democrats in the U.S. Senate are asking the Federal Trade Commissioner, FTC, to investigate ID.me. This is an identity proofing company for quote-unquote deceptive statements that basically the company and its founder apparently made over how they're actually handling the facial recognition data collected on behalf of the IRS, which until recently, anybody that wanted to basically set up a new IRS account online to provide a live, basically had to provide a live video selfie to ID.me. Brian Krebs wrote about this earlier, about how he went through that, somewhat convoluted process, and essentially they pair you with a live human from ID.me that actually validates you are who you are. Obviously, the IRS is attempting to thwart fraud, as IRS fraud in tax returns is a massive problem every single year for the federal government. Now, with that said, Senators Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey, Edward Markey, Democrat of Massachusetts, Alex Padilla, Democrat of California, and Ron Wyden, who I've talked about quite a bit here on privacy things, Democrat of Oregon, basically penned a letter to the FTC. And in this letter to Chair Linda Kahn, the senators charged that ID.me's CEO, Blake Hall, offered conflicting statements about how his company actually uses facial recognition and facial scan data that it collects on behalf of the federal government, and also many states that use their platform to basically screen applicants for things like unemployment insurance. The lawmakers basically said in public statements and blog posts, or rather they said that in public statements and blog posts, ID.me has frequently emphasized the difference between two types of facial recognition, one-to-one facial recognition and one-to-many. Now, in the one-to-one approach, a live video selfie is compared to the image on a driver's license. As an example, the one-to-many facial recognition involves comparing a face against a database of other faces to find potential matches. Now, obviously, that is a concern for Americans here that have IRS accounts, and a good chunk of us are taxpayers. I think most of us are, because of these two types of facial recognitions. And to quote the letter to the FTC from the senators directly, and I quote verbatim, "While one-to-one recognition involves a one-time comparison of two images in order to confirm an applicant's identity, the use of one-to-many recognition means that millions of innocent people will have their photographs endlessly queried as part of a digital lineup. Not only does this violate individuals' privacy, but the inevitable false matches associated with one-to-many recognition can result in applicants being wrongly denied desperately needed services for weeks or even months as they try to get their case reviewed. This risk is especially acute for people of color. NIST's facial recognition vendor test found that many facial recognition algorithms have rates of false matches that are as much as 100 times higher for individuals from countries in West Africa, East Asia, than for individuals from Eastern European countries. This means Black and Asian Americans could be disproportionately likely to be denied benefits due to a false match in the one-to-many facial recognition system." I actually talked about that in my third TED Talk entitled "Can Technology Defeat Our Prejudice?", where I talk about the deep flaws that research from places like MIT have found in facial recognition databases. They are not perfect, and they are not near that soon, although obviously they are attempting to continuously try and improve, but that is a huge thing. Now, the lawmakers also said that basically throughout the later half of 2021 last year, ID.me published statements and a multitude of blog posts stating that they did not use the one-to-many approach to facial recognition, and that basically that approach was quote-unquote problematic and tied to surveillance operations. But several days after a January 16, 2022 post basically about IRS's new facial ID requirement went viral and prompted public backlash. CEO Hall basically acknowledged in a LinkedIn post that ID.me does use the one-to-many facial recognition, meaning you and I are in a digital lineup continuously over and over and over. Now, Cyberscoop's Tanya Riley published excerpts from internal ID.me employees' Slack messages. Slack is that internal communication systems that many businesses use, wherein some express dread and unease with the company's equivocation on its use of the one-to-many facial recognition, ideology. Now, in February, the IRS announced that it would no longer require facial scans or other biometric data from taxpayers seeking to create an account at the agency's website. The agency also pledged that any biometric data shared with ID.me would be permanently deleted. Obviously, they would have to prove that, otherwise they would be susceptible to liability charges and lawsuits. But the IRS still requires a new account, new account applicants to sign up with either ID.me or login.gov, which is a single sign-on solution already used to access about 200 websites run by 28 federal agencies. It also still offers the option of providing a live selfie for verification, although the IRS says this data will now be deleted automatically. And obviously, in that case, we would have to take them at their word unless we had an independent third party to audit that. And that's one of the problems with the federal government, is that essentially the federal government's oversight is itself. And as we've seen, basically due to the lack of cybersecurity and privacy controls that the inspectors general found in 2021 when President Biden leveled an executive order to audit the 8 largest federal agencies out there, we have a huge problem with this, meaning it is very difficult to take the IRS at its word. And if they are using essentially platforms that are saying one thing or claiming one thing but doing another, and eventually that catches up with them, that is a huge problem. Privacy is essentially a right guaranteed under the Supreme Court, under the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court, and that is something that we have to basically hold as sacrosanct. I cannot speak today, I'm sorry. We have to cherish that. Let's just put it that way. You know what I'm trying to say. So, with that, the other thing that I would say is that while this has been a push by Democrats in the Senate, I would like to see Republicans attached onto this as well. We have seen bills pass almost unanimously in very bipartisan ways over the last couple of years, both under Trump and Biden, on the cybersecurity front. And so this would be one of those things, I think, that they would want to get behind, understanding we have this entire culture war thing that we are going through. But I think this is one of those things we can all agree on. Privacy is a good thing. Privacy is essentially sacrosanct. That's what I was trying to say before. It just came to me in my head. And so there you go. So that said, that is your news of the day. Heads up, IRS users. We're going to see where this goes. But great reporting by Brian Krebs as always. And as always, that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. And I think I'm going back to bed. Take care.